As I indicated, I want to present Sean Martin, a registered professional engineer. He's going to address the on-site conditions in Lot 6, waterfront zone issues, historic overlay district, floodplain overlay district issues, and others. Mr. Martin, would you please tell the board about your background and education, experience, qualifications?
Yes, my name is Sean Martin. I'm a professional civil engineer, Vice President of Fussett O'Neill, their office in Providence. I have 24 years of development experience, primarily civil engineering experience, dealing with water resources, land development matters. Received my Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering in 1994. I testified in front of zoning boards throughout the state, including this board, and I've worked, again, primarily on land development projects, so my level of expertise is focused on development and more specifically urban development.
Has the board accept him as an expert as a professional engineer in regard to civil engineering?
Yes. Just to be formal, could we have a motion and a vote, since that's what the rules say?
Do we have a motion on that, please? I'll make a motion to accept Mr. Martin as an expert.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Mr. Martin.
Okay, and
You're not an expert.
just to be clarified, he's being accepted as an expert in civil engineering?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Little historical perspective as I talk about some of the site conditions that exist at the property today. This project was a project that I worked on 16 years ago as the civil engineer designer. So I've been involved in this project for quite some time, and I want to talk about site conditions, some of the unique features about the property, and perhaps look back at some of the context and how the development ended at what you see in front of you today. Back in about 2003, I was involved in the master planning of this property, and the main goal was to figure out a development at the master plan level that assembled the two parcels of land that you see in front of you, lots 3 and 6. Lot 3 being what has been described as the Belvedere Hotel property on Hope Street, along with the John Street property and the carriage house to the rear or to the west of the Belvedere Hotel. And Lot 6, which is fronting on State Street and Thames Street, is a property that was separated by grade by about 10 feet in elevation from the upper parcel. There was a challenge to figure out how to develop the property as a cohesive unit and meet some of the other requirements for zoning for this property, and most specifically parking. So it was decided at the time to accommodate parking and use or utilize the elevation change on the property to advantage by constructing a parking deck. And that's what you see today. That parcel of land, parcel 6, was previously developed historically. At the time of this project, it was a gravel lot and vacant of any improvements. One of the other challenges in developing this property were the flood hazard zone. The flood hazard zone goes through an entire lower lot, or lot 6. The revised or latest FEMA flood elevation is elevation 12 feet. And for those that perhaps can't read the plan very well, I'm going to show you about where it's located. Elevation 12 on the north end of the property is about right here on State Street, and it comes along this building and back towards the existing retaining wall, follows the wall, and goes around this building to the south and into John Street. So you can see this entire parcel 6 is within the flood hazard zone. Now there's a letter of map that action is letter of map revision has been issued by FEMA depicting the area that's subject to wave action being seaward of this development parcel, whereas previously had been indicated on the parcel itself. So the wave action determines how the building is constructed and what can be placed within that flood zone. So the property is still within the flood hazard zone, but it's not subject to wave action. You can see on this drawing, this shows the proposed condition of the first floor of the Thames Street parcel, or parcel 6. It shows access from Thames Street, and again, this is a lower level parking layout that is below the parcel 3. So it's at the lowest level of the site, and it's within the flood hazard zone. This is an image of the proposed upper level of the building, and you can see that it covers the parking deck and parking structure, and that meets the grade of the upper level, or parcel 3. So you still have access, as exists today, to upper level parking from John Street. So that will still remain. And this was a way to provide parking access from Thames Street and from John Street on 2 different levels that are not connected, like you might see at the Providence Place parking garage. You don't have the levels connected inside. So this was a strategy that was used to provide the parking that was required for the development, but at the same time addressing this unique condition where you have a parcel of land that's joined, or a development that's joined in the master plan, but it's separated by a significant amount of elevation. I want to also point out that when this project was designed, we had designed water, sewer, electrical, telecommunications, utilities that served all the buildings that were on parcel 3. A generator and transformer were placed on the upper level of the project because those utilities cannot be placed within the base flood elevation, so they can't be placed on the lower level. They have to be elevated. They can certainly be elevated on a building or parking garage, as was designed here, but that's one of the reasons those structures were placed in this area. And the idea at the time was, though, this utility junction would also feed electrical to the future development phase on parcel 6. In addition, there's a subsurface drainage system below the parking deck today, and that was designed to serve development on both parcel 6 and parcel 3. And I have some information for you, but I can tell you that the system resulted, or was projecting, reductions in the amount of runoff that goes into the Thames Street drainage system by up to 15% during the 100-year storm event. So again, a significant reduction to the existing utilities, the town's actually utilities. Water, sewer, and I say fire protection, so it's domestic water and fire protection water services that were installed and tapped and brought to the property line to accommodate a future building as part of phase 3. So all those utilities and infrastructure were built to accommodate this project. The streetscape at the time was improved using the town's standards at the time. Again, it was projected that that would enhance the streetscape and accommodate this future building. The projects have been approved previously by the Coastal Resources Management Council. There is right here a 200-foot jurisdiction boundary. The project has been approved by CRMC and DEM for the stormwater system. So those, the stormwater system. Yeah. So as you can see, the project has really been, from an infrastructure standpoint, been set up to accommodate this future phase of development. It's been specifically designed for a building structure to be placed here around the parking deck. I want to speak to the variances that are being requested that pertain to the parking dimensions. specifically, okay. Yes, please.
Scroll ahead to those slides.
All right. This is an image, an architectural diagram of the lowest floor from Thames Street. You can see the parking arrangement with the driveway access to the parking bays and aisles interior to the structure. Variance request number 8, Article 8, Section 28-251.2A, off-street parking and loading requirements, requires a 10-foot by 18-foot parking stall. We're proposing a parking stall dimension of 9 feet by 18 feet. A 9-foot by 18-foot parking stall is the standard that's widely used throughout the state, and in other states, in fact. And is a standard that has been adopted in both urban and suburban areas. What we found in particularly urban development, when land is more valuable, the cost of development, and not only that, there are environmental aspects of reducing the footprint of a project, consuming less land for parking becomes more critical. Many jurisdictions have recognized and granted relief to that effect as long as safety standards can be maintained and physical access, maneuverability can be accommodated. And that's the case here. A 9-foot parking space can still accommodate a full-size vehicle comfortably. Most cars, even a large full-size car, is 6 feet wide, not including the mirrors. So you're about 7 feet wide, just over that with the mirrors. So a full-size car can fit comfortably in a 9-foot by 18-foot space. The standard that Bristol has adopted at 10 feet by 18 feet, I think, consumes land unnecessarily in this instance, particularly in a downtown environment. And in most cases, even in a surface parking lot, the focus these days is to still provide a safe and reasonable parking space while reducing the footprint, reducing the amount of imperviousness. Variance number 9, Article 8, Section 28-251.2A, off-street parking and loading, requires a 24-foot parking aisle or driveway, so 12 feet per lane. We're proposing a minimum of 22 feet, and exceeds that in some cases. 22 feet, again, is a standard that's been adopted by many communities as their routine standard. It is also a common standard when parking aisles of 24 feet are reduced. 22 feet is about the minimum. I have seen 20 feet work comfortably in urban settings. One of the main advantages of a 22-foot wide aisle is it helps to reduce some vehicle speeds. And in the context of a parking garage in an enclosed space, drivers with obstructions and cars in close proximity tend to drive slower. So a 22-foot aisle not only accommodates turning movement safely, it also tends to slow vehicles down, which is exactly what you want in this context. Variance number 10, Article 8, Section 28-251.2B, off-street parking and loading requirements, striping. Bristol requires for parking areas more than 20 spaces that the painted lines for each stall be double striped, such that there is a minimum of 2 feet between each stall. So effectively, the center of each double stripe to the next double stripe is 10 feet. That's how the town of Bristol measures it. As I had stated previously, with the discussion of parking spaces being 9 feet by 18 feet, providing pavement markings at 9 feet between each space still provides a 9-foot parking space, usable space. Parking stripes are typically 4 inches wide. It doesn't in any way restrict how a vehicle enters and exits the parking space. And in fact, using the Bristol standard, you will only typically have 8 feet between the painted lines. So what we found, as I testified before, is that a space of this dimension can accommodate still large vehicles. And in fact, the city of Providence, and this is true of areas outside of the urban core, in similar context of this site, is 8.5 feet wide. Our office is located in a property that's been developed with 8.5 foot wide spaces, and it functions very well. That's
Just have a couple questions. Sure. Martin, do you have an opinion based upon a reasonable degree of engineering certainty that the parking stalls, the locations of the parking stalls, the reduction in the aisles from 24 to 22 in some areas, the single striping, and the requirement of, and the location of parking spaces closer to the structure than allowed by the current ordinance would result in parking stalls, parking areas, the aisles, and the location of the parking spaces would meet the applicable engineering and safety standards for parking location, parking stalls, and the width of the aisle.
Yes, and that is also consistent with our original design of this project. That's correct.
And is it your testimony that as designed, the parking stalls and their locations, the width, the elimination of a double stripe, and the reduction in the width of the aisle will in fact conform with the engineering and safety standards applicable to those items?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
My opinion is that the design, the layout, the dimensions, and the proximity of the spaces in relation to each other and the building will satisfy engineering requirements for safe operation of this facility.
I don't have any other questions of Mr. Martin. And the board has any questions?
Mr. Martin, you testified that the 9 by 18 spacing for the off-street parking would reduce the subpervious implications of this project.
Can you use the microphone,
I'm
please?
sorry. Would reduce the subpervious implications of the project. So is my question, if we went 10 by 18 as opposed to 9 by 18, how much more impact would that have on the project?
From an impervious standpoint, it would not have an impact in this context because it's for enclosed parking area. What it would do is reduce the amount of available spaces that could be provided to the businesses and residents.
So then the 9 by 18 is really strictly to increase the amount of parking?
Yes, it's intended to provide more off-street parking within the enclosed space. That's correct.